Okay, good afternoon, YouTube. Another live stream. Haven't done one of these for, I don't know, a couple weeks now. And today, I'm going to be reacting to a video. I just went on YouTube and found a video, I'm just going to share with you guys, right? And so the title of this video is Rolex in Crisis after this shocking video went viral on Chinese TikTok. And so if you haven't heard, if you are in the watch world and you're into collecting watches and part of the watch community, you folks will know that I have been talking for about a decade about the quality of luxury brands and how they're not all that cracked up for what they are, right? For what they cost, right? It's not all what it's cracked up to be. And that doesn't mean that they're poor quality. I want to be very clear in that. I'm not stating that, but I'm stating that the quality for what you pay is great, right? But it's not so much better than a $100 Invicta, right? And so I've said for many, many years, decades, I was like one of the only ones saying it on YouTube, so I have a little aha moment here, that the quality of luxury brands is extremely based around marketing and a perception, right? And what I mean by that is people automatically think that when they pay more for something, that you're getting higher quality. Now, of course, there are caveats to that. There are instances where sometimes paying more will get you better quality, right? And I don't mean it to sound like just because you pay a lot of money for any product that it's garbage or that there isn't a difference, right? But in this watch world full of delusional snobs, there is this misconception that you can't compare an affordable watch, like, and I don't mean just an Invicta, I mean like a Duxo, a Nubeo, an Aragon, an Invicta, a Citizen, a Bulova. You pick the brand that you can't compare Chinese watches to these top tier luxury brands like Rolex. And in my opinion, you can. And now there's more and more coming out about the quality and where they're actually made, right? And so I just find it very comical, and I just want to just come out and say, for any of you snobs that are watching this channel, aha, And so there's a lot more folks now coming out. The problem with this is that remember that anything that I share with you folks or anybody on the internet, it's not, I guess, true until it's proven in a court of law. So remember, I'm just reacting to what's on the internet, right? And remember, the internet isn't always true. So I just want to state that too. But in my opinion, I think a lot of this has to do, and I don't know a lot of the backstory of this. I will look into this more, but I'm just going to react to it today, give you guys my 2 cents on it, and just kind of see where it goes. But I'll tell you that I've never been impressed with luxury brands. There are some brands out there that I do find fascinating, like Jacob & Company. I've always said is a brand that if I won the Powerball tomorrow, I'd probably have one. Would it be $1 million watch? No, but there's a lot of really cool watches they make that are encrusted with diamonds and gemstones, which I think are really works of art. And I think what really draws me into different watches is the artistic side of it, not the perception people are going to have of me wearing it because I have a Rolex on my wrist and I want to pretend like I have money. And it doesn't mean that people who wear them don't have money. I'm just saying that there is this I've gotten into battles over the years with YouTubers who, think that I'm crazy for comparing luxury watches with affordable brands. And I'm really glad that stuff like this is coming out. So I've seen a lot of other videos. I'm going to watch a lot more, but I've heard that Rolex is, their content where Rolex is dropping prices and all this stuff. So I never like to see a company fail, but I will tell you that I feel in my heart, and it is my opinion, that luxury brands have been ripping people off for years and living off this luxury perception, right? And part of me is a little happy that it's happening, right? I mean, I feel like companies like this have been ripping people off for a long time. But remember, if you like something, it's only a ripoff if you bought it with the idea that you're getting a huge level of quality. But anybody with common sense, and this goes out to all you snobs out there, anybody with a brain in their head should be able to pick up a Rolex Submariner and pick up a nice quality, affordable brand and say, all right, there's not a lot of difference here, right? So, and again, difference can be subjective. So let's just begin the video. I got the live chat open, so I don't know how many people we'll get on a 1:33 p.m. in the middle of the week. But, if you guys catch us on the rerun, drop your comments. The only reason I'm doing this is because somebody commented on my channel today, coming back to, one of my Rolex videos, and they're like, coming back to this after China exposed Rolex. I was like, oh, let me check this out. So let's see what we got here. And as you guys comment, if you pop into the chat, I'll respond. All right.
Chinese brands exposing the watch industry. Where is that? I've seen movies.
Got you right here. This is a CF Rolex I got from Shenzhen for only 120 USD, and it still ticks. Everything is perfect.
Watches come in different sizes. A small dial makes you with slimmer, while a large one makes you a stronger error. First of all, you need to determine your budget range. The Rolex data just is the best choice for cost effective.
So I'm not sure. We'll see where this goes here. When the gentleman just says Rolex is, whatever model is this, it's cost effective. There's nothing cost effective about a Rolex watch. They're outrageously overpriced, in my opinion. I've held Rolex watches. I've held many luxury brands, and I'll never see the fascination other than the fact that you want to have something on your wrist. It does kind of draw an element of success, right? But it's not a guarantee. But I just don't. It's like putting lipstick on a pig, right? Is that the old saying? Not to say there's not. I mean, it's not to say Rolex isn't a brand that's meaningful in the watch world and horological history, but to me, I would never spend the money on one. And also to be like the gentleman who just showed you the $100 Rolex, I'm not sure what this part of it is. I'm not sure if that's a replica or what it is, but maybe they give. There wasn't a lot of context there, so let's just continue on.
There are now claims that Rolex, the luxury Swiss watch brand, has been making parts, and sometimes whole watches, in China. Yeah, the same Rolex people spend $10,000, $20,000, even more on. In this video, I'm showing you the real clips, footage from inside factories, insiders speaking out, a watch expert who says he got fired for telling the truth, and a veteran dealer explaining how you can just buy a Rolex clone because it's the same product.
The funny thing about these guys is now a lot of them will change their tune, whereas in the past, like these guys would tell me I'm an idiot. Now, I'm not saying these specific people, but guys like this, you're going to see a lot of the watch community now kind of change their tune on this and pretend like, oh yeah, I knew it all along. Like when they were all duped. All of them were duped, and all of them they have zero critical thinking. These guys who are reviewing luxury brands and telling you that they're just just light years ahead of like any of the affordable $100 watches out there. They're just liars. So I want you guys to take from that. There's a lot of liars out there. And also they're showing, watches that are, let's say there's lots of, we'll see where this video goes. There's lots of watches that are replicas. You can get all over AliExpress, Alibaba, places like that. Just keep that in mind. There are replicas and there are replicas. There's like I have had many watches over the years, and I have some that are extremely companies have sent me off DHgate over the years, and some of them are extremely low quality. There's low quality watches and better quality. So just keep that in mind. There's a reason why sometimes when you're looking at different replica watches online, you never really know what you're going to get until you actually get it, because a lot of times they'll show you real watch pictures and you're not really sure. So just kind of keep that in mind. Same we say with Invicta. There's Invicta watches that I do recommend and Invicta watches I don't.
I am showing everything. Let's get into it.
做成了基本程序。你这是哪个程序？车窗上哪个程序要标的？哦，表壳。直接从你这个程序弄。
For years, Rolex was more than a watch. People believed they were buying Swiss craftsmanship passed down through generations, sold millions of watches, and built a global empire. But that image is now falling apart. Real footage from inside Chinese factories showing what looks like Rolex production happening far from Switzerland. Workers filming rows of watches, parts being assembled in bulk. It was visual proof that the handmade Swiss masterpiece story wasn't the full truth.
So right now, I'm not really sure I can go as far as agreeing with this, with this particular person who's ever, speaking here, showing factories making watches. Those parts might. What Rolex will probably do is there's going to be a huge legal battle over this, and what Rolex will probably come out and say is that those are replica parts. Those are not the ones we're getting, right? So we'll see if this video has more proof. Right now, that's not really proof of anything. That's just. They're just showing a factory making parts, right? So I didn't see anything that really confirms this quite yet, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if it's true, but...
Everyone thinks Rolex means Swiss. It says Swiss made on the dial, so people assume the entire watch is built in Switzerland. But
well, that's because people are stupid. That does not mean that. And people shouldn't assume that. You should always look into things.
That's not how it works.
打包之后好漂亮哦。半成品的表带。
People always think like Swiss made watches are made like this little guy with a jeweler's loop, this little old guy with a nice suit vest on, in a little hut somewhere by candlelight and fire going, sipping on some Irish whiskey or something, sitting in this old school generations, a watch shop, and this is realistically more of what it is.
磨了之后它就不会擦手了。
Places like Shenzhen are producing cases, dials, movements, entire watch components at massive scale. Those parts get shipped to Switzerland, where they're put together, stamped Swiss-made, and sold for thousands.
No, I believe that. I mean, I absolutely do. Now, again, we're not seeing any real evidence here of that. I mean, just showing, there's so many watches made in Switzerland. My point is, when it comes to Chinese brands versus Swiss brands, they're modern machining. People like to live in the past. There is a huge difference in modern machining and the capabilities of Chinese factories. Yeah, if you go back 30 years and you look at a fake, let's just say fake Rolex watch, right? It's super crummy, right? And a lot of Chinese watches were crummy, but they have come. It's light years ahead of what it was, and a lot of folks just don't. In the watch world, the snobs they're delusional, I always kind of compare them to like the abused housewife who just won't leave her husband. It's like they just hold on and cling on to this idea that just doesn't exist. Chinese watches are amazing, and now whether or not these are actually Rolex parts, I do believe that many, remember the designation to be Swiss made is extremely loose. So there's nothing that's violating the law by parts being made in China and then stamping it Swiss made, as long as I think there's a certain percentage of the assembly needs to be done. But Rolex's whole thing is that it's made in their factories, and who really knows, right? And I haven't seen evidence yet, but we'll continue on.
That $20,000 Rolex, it might have been built in the same room as a $200 replica. The difference is branding, not craftsmanship.
Yeah, I totally agree. The difference is branding and not craftsmanship. Again, these are my opinions. I'm not saying that I haven't seen any evidence yet, but I truly believe in my heart that a lot of what's going to go on in this video is true and that this is a big sham. But I don't know. Just saying my opinion.
Are Swiss watches really made in China? I went to Shenzhen to find out. It's the epicenter of Chinese watch manufacturing, and according to this one expert,
Tissot make about 4 million watches a year, 300 watchmakers in Switzerland. Do the math.
There's compelling evidence that Swiss made on the dial doesn't mean the watch was made or constructed in Switzerland.
I mean, it's really old news. I mean, again, when we're talking about what it means to be Swiss made, and just Google, what does it mean to be Swiss made, right? What is it, the legal definition? It's very loose, right? So there was a time where I believe Swiss made meant, the whole watch was made in Switzerland, but that's not the case anymore. So remember, brands, there's a perception of quality and a perception of quality, right? There's a perception of luxury if you spend more. And so a lot of these brands naturally are not going to, people are going to buy them regardless. I mean, if you show a Rolex watch or any of these luxury brands side by side with Pagani design, you might be able to pick out little tiny differences, but there are also, replicas out there that are a fraction of the cost that are just as nice. So again, I always say if it's not that difficult to replicate, it wasn't that special in the first place. You be the judge.
I did find the higher quality knockoffs. They all pointed me in the direction of one particular factory. Unfortunately, they wouldn't let me film inside, but I can tell you the quality was very high. Certainly, lots of micro brands manufacture in Shenzhen, as well as lots of big brands.
It's estimated that over 90% of the world's watch production, luxury or not, runs through Shenzhen at some stage. Brands know it.
It's really funny now. I feel like, not to get political, but I feel like a lot of this is happening now because Trump pissed off China, and so I find it funny, but because I'm not really interested in owning a Rolex ever. There's just too many. I have too many homage watches that look like that are amazing quality, and there's just no point to me unless I've said many times the only Rolex watch that is appealing to me is a solid gold one, right? And I'm not going to ever spend the money for that. Or above that is like the customized ones, like Medusa makes one that's all rubies, and I think that's pretty cool, but mainly for the rubies and not really for the Rolex name.
They've relied on it for decades. They just never talk about it. For years, these factories operated behind without any media access. Brand contracts were kept private. But now we're seeing real footage filmed by workers inside the very same factories that have supplied parts to big-name luxury brands. In those videos, there's no mistaking what's happening. You can see recognizable luxury watch designs being assembled in rows.
Now that's not like she's stating that like you can see them assemble. Like we don't have any real evidence that this video, that those are actually like genuine, like the actual luxury brand, right? So just be kind of, you know, again, even though you folks know I'm not, if you're a fan of mine, you've been watching me for a while, remember I'm not a huge luxury watch guy, right? I'm never going to buy one, but remember that also we want to be clear and be honest, and right now I'm not seeing evidence of anything really. I mean, there's lots of, we're looking at watch cases, we're not actually, you know, we don't have any kind of like Rolex employees spilling the beans or anything like that, right? So just kind of keep that in mind.
As soon as you see this video, please don't spend a lot of money on a watch. I am a watch factory from China. Because I can no longer bear that you spend tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy watches, I take the risk of offending all brands to tell you one thing. In fact, watches do not need to be that expensive. I can let you get a big brand watch with 1% of the original price.
In a few leaked
Yep, I've been saying that for a decade. Decades I've been saying that, so...
walkthroughs, factory workers talk openly about the production scale. Some say they ship thousands of units per week, many of which end up going through private label deals, white label shipments, or straight to brand-approved facilities overseas. Some brands even fly inspectors in from Switzerland to sign off on batches before they're boxed and labeled. That way, the paper trail still ends in Switzerland. It's no longer just factory...
Yeah, I mean, again, remember, be clear, we don't see, this is just an opinion here, we're looking at stuff, I'm sure more will come out about this, but, you know, here's where I'm at with this. A lot of companies need to manufacture in China to be competitive. When you're looking at, like, a guy like, for instance, Long Island Watch, right, he has, I believe, his own brand that's, I believe, manufactured in China. There's lots of brands that do this, but remember, like, for a guy like that to stay competitive and to come in at a certain price point, things need to be manufactured in China. And why not? The quality is amazing. However, when a brand like, if it's true that luxury brands like Rolex are being made in China, that's just about markup and making millions of dollars.
Footage or insider leaks. Now, we're seeing respected professionals who've been deep inside this industry exposing the truth. One of the most damning revelations came from a former Swiss watchmaker known as the Watch Regulator, who worked for one of the largest groups in the game, Swatch Group. That includes Omega, Tissot, Breguet, Blancpain, and more.
I got fired from Swatch Group today for talking about their products on TikTok.
I'll tell you too, I'm going to have a guest on this channel eventually here, and he's in the watch world. He got deeper into the watch world, and I'm not going to state who or you know, what we're going to discuss. We haven't really ironed that out yet, but I'll tell you that, you know, my opinions, you know, he's definitely in agreement after opening up a lot of these watches and working on them.
Before we get into the reasons why I was fired, just for the people that don't know, Swatch Group is a large Swiss watch group that comprises brands like Omega, Longines, Tissot, Breguet, Blancpain, Rado, Hamilton, and of course Swatch.
And that's pretty common too. Just like I work with Nubeo watches and their brands, right? We have Dartmouth watches or Dartmouth brands, and under that is RGMT, Aviate, Spinnaker, RGMT, and a few others. And that's why it's always funny. I always try to like give people get people to like say something like have the aha moment where they're like, oh, I love Spinnaker watches, but Nubeo sucks. I'm like, yeah, same company, dumbass. And so that's where it's I always try to use that comparison when a guy's like, oh yeah, Spinnaker is amazing quality. I'm like, yep, they are. What do you think about RGMT? And they're like, oh, cheap Chinese crap. And you're like, actually, they're the same brand, right? So
one of the reasons that I got fired was for this video where I talk about how Swiss watch brands say they service your watch, but actually just swap out the movement for a new one. And that was classified as a breach of company confidentiality. Oh, and also, how could I forget when I talked about how Omega parts for watches weren't made in Switzerland, but were instead made in China.
Again, banking on the fact that this receipt, this invoice he's showing is authentic and real, and I tend to believe it, you know. But yeah, there you go, origin China.
Yeah, that's probably a big one.
He confirmed that not only are major components like cases, dials, and hands made in China, but even the diamond-studded parts of watches marketed as luxury come from Asian suppliers.
And I want to be clear on that. Just because something comes from China, like, that doesn't mean that Rolex is now low quality, right? That doesn't mean that. It just means that if this is true, that they have been painting a picture that's a little inaccurate, right? And so that does hurt their reputation if this is true. Even if it's not true, we've seen firsthand that we live in a society where you don't really need evidence to start destroying somebody's reputation, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is.
He was replacing parts on a high-end gold watch, only to realize everything, except maybe a cheap $5 quartz movement, was stamped from Asia.
Are Rolex watches made in China? So what I know to be true, and having seen with my own beady little eyes while working at Swatch Group, who own, is that they have bracelets, dials, cases, hands, movement components, all made in China. I've seen the packaging for them, I've seen the country of origin stamped on them, I know that to be true. Rolex mass-produced watches are the best mass-produced watches you can get. They make 1.2 to 1.5 million watches a year. They're not made by hand. They're made on a production line.
Yeah, and it just goes to show you how stupid people are, really. I mean, to put out that many watches, like, how could you possibly think that they're made by hand, right? I mean, you don't really need, like, evidence of this to just use common sense, right? King, what's up, man? I will address that question in a second here, okay?
They do machine pretty much everything. There's no hand finishing. It doesn't take them a year to make a watch. They're the best mass-produced watch. They're the Toyota Corolla of watches.
And I agree with that, and that's where, again, just not to say that let's say that what this gentleman is stating is true, I don't want this to come across like, oh, you take a Rolex watch, and let's say the whole thing is made in China, right? You don't take a Rolex watch and compare it to, like, a Pagani design and be like, oh, yeah, they're exactly the same. There's going to be differences. Like, there's obviously attention to detail and more involvement in the final product and finishing, but again, you can't, my argument's always been, one does not make the other one a piece of shit. Like, that's always been my argument. And that they're both nice quality. Sure, Rolex more refined, but again, not the little watch guy with the jeweler's loop hand finishing everything, right? That's been my opinion on the subject, and we'll see if this guy confirms the validity of my opinion.
Even breaks down the Swiss-made label, how it doesn't mean what you think it means. According to Swiss law, a watch...
All right, so here's a good spot to pause. So I just want to welcome King. Hopefully get some more people in here, but we'll see. So he just mentioned, what do I think of movement watches? So I think that any watch that a person wears is cool, for one. Do I think Movement is a high-quality watch? I think Movement, I'm not super familiar with Movement, but I think Movement is an overpriced watch. I think Movement, their marketing is what I think is somewhat deceptive. Whereas, like, people say Invicta is deceptive, and they're like, oh, it's a $6,000 watch, deceptive marketing. I don't really agree with that. It's just lots of brands do the huge MSRP and always have the product on sale. Whereas Movement, they claim they're luxury watches, right? And there is, when you compare even a Movement watch, and I'm not saying all of them, there might be better ones. I'm not super familiar with Movement, but when you compare, like, a $150 watch, you get a lot more bang for your buck with other brands like Pagani, Tactical Frog, Invicta, Aragon, so I think Movement is just if you like it, that's what's important, but it's not a luxury brand. But then again, luxury brands is like a designation of I think luxury luxury to me just means overpriced, right? So you're not getting a Movement watch. It's not a luxury watch compared to even like a Rolex or even like a Pagani design, in my opinion. But again, that's just my 2 cents on it. But I think if somebody likes a Movement watch, it's not like you're getting a piece of shit. I mean, if you get, some of them probably aren't. I think some of them are like $150 and you're getting a pretty cheap watch. I wouldn't buy one, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't. Adrian, what's up, man? He said, this is a rabbit hole. Swiss made sounds great. Assembled in Switzerland, maybe, but Swiss made, who knows? And King just said, agreed. That's the reason Invicta Pro Diver is so popular. If anything, the Pro Diver and other Submariner homages being so popular is a testament to Rolex and design they created. So Rolex really, to me, Rolex didn't really create the design. It's Blanc. I think it's the 50 Fathoms. A lot of folks will say a Rolex sub is almost like a homage to a 50 Fathoms. There's nothing really creative about a Rolex. It's a 3-link bracelet with a round case. Granted, is it a nice looking watch? Absolutely, but there's lots of nice looking watches. It's conservative. It's very, I have many homages that I wear often, right? And ones that are, I wouldn't even consider homages. They have a different bezel, they have a different look, but there's nothing really amazing. The reason why people like Rolex is the perception of luxury, the name. They want to be part of the club. That's why you buy a Rolex, because if you're just, talking about the cosmetics, there's so many other options. And so I just don't really think that they create anything amazing. If you took that watch and Invicta and maybe a ton of other brands were just the brands behind that, nobody would be saying it's an amazing design. It's the fact that it's a Rolex is why people are like, oh, it's amazing design. That's, again, that is subjective. I do think it's a nice watch, don't get me wrong, but there's lots of watches I think are nice.
Which can be labeled Swiss-made as long as 60% of its production cost happens in Switzerland. But that includes design, admin, even marketing, things that have nothing to do with actual craftsmanship. In practice, that means a watch could be 80% built in China, then flown to Geneva where someone screws on the backplate, and boom, it's suddenly Swiss-made.
What a joke. What a fucking joke. And really, who cares really? The real deception here is the price. That's the real deception, not necessarily the quality, right? Not Christian, what's up, man? Victor Pro Diver rocks. Yes, they do.
The man knows what he's talking about. He's showing proof. He said this has been going on since at least the 1970s.
I haven't necessarily seen proof yet other than the invoice. So I haven't really seen proof. I don't agree with this girl stating this is proof. I hope more proof comes out. But it is his, he does seem like he's got a lot of experience in this world. I will lean on believing it is true. But remember, we have not really seen proof other than that invoice there.
And just when it couldn't get more clear, a veteran watch dealer with 15 years in the business says it straight. Some of these fakes are perfect. Modern counterfeit Rolexes, especially models like the Datejust and stainless steel Daytona, are now so precise that even certified watchmakers are being fooled.
More quality.
Oh, the quality of the knockoff is becoming crazy. They've been replicating the cards, even the cards, the paperwork for the watches.
That's old news. These guys, I mean, it's almost like some of these dudes have been living under a rock, Like, I've been talking about this for decades. Like, the cards, they've been giving Rolex cards in boxes for years. And that can be said with, like, Louis Vuitton bags and, whatever else that has been replicated for decades. They always come with tags and bags and paperwork and all that stuff. So that's nothing really. It's almost like these guys, like, where have you been for the last 30 years?
They've been doing it. It's like, it's scary.
Rolex mostly?
Rolex, Richard Mille, like anything, just name it, you'll see it.
The materials, the movements, the detailing, everything checks out. One fake passed inspection by 2 separate experts. It wasn't caught until much later.
I've said it, now I'm sorry I'm gloating a little bit. I've said it for decades. If it was that easy to replicate, it wasn't that special in the first place. These guys act like this is some difficult thing to do. It's not.
Later, after it was resold. But this isn't just about the watch. These replicas come with
I mean, you want to talk about difficult. I was having a conversation today with somebody, and they were talking about how they were replacing the front end of some gigantic sea vessel, and they were able to, like, cut off the end and, like, build a new one and line it up, and everything was perfect. To me, that's amazing. Not to, like, replicate some stainless steel fucking overpriced watch.
Everything. NFC cards, warranty booklets, branded boxes, instruction manuals, microfiber cloths. Even
I have a theory. And again, this is only a conspiracy theory. No evidence, no proof. But I have a theory that a lot of times, again, I just want to state this, just a theory, that I'm not even going to say the brands, that I feel like some luxury brands are almost in cahoots with replica companies where they know that their brands are going to be replicated. So they're actually making money on the replicated watches as well. No evidence of that at all, just a conspiracy theory.
Even the internal chips that scan to Rolex's official site are duplicated. Every piece of the experience copied exactly. And the reason the clones are so accurate to the real Rolexes is because the people making these fakes are the same ones producing components for the real thing. Same factories.
I said that for years, that a lot of the watches, and not necessarily about the fake watches. But I said this about many, like whether Pagani design, like some folks will come at me and be like, Pagani design is so much better than an Addy's dive or San Martin. And I was like, yeah, you know, they're probably made in the same factory. There might be one slight difference in maybe the attention to detail or maybe quality control, maybe a slightly different part. But, you know, I feel like a lot of people are just kind of delusional when they start comparing watches. They already have their mind made up before they actually start looking at them, you know. And so their mind creates reasons on why they believe one is better. I've often thought for years, like when people are like, oh, that's a $50 fake watch. I was like, well, it's probably the same thing as a Pagani design, just they slap a different name on it, you know?
Same tooling, same workers. When a legitimate batch is done, the machines don't stop. Another run starts, same specs, just without a logo. One shipment gets a Rolex stamp and a flight to Switzerland. The other hits the replica market. The same product, just with a different destination. And these are the exact watches that are being sold by Chinese watch manufacturers on TikTok. So you get the same watch at a fraction of the cost of the real one.
So just be clear, we don't know that. I haven't seen evidence of that. They might be just showing in this video here just replica watches. And yes, they're absolutely good. They're amazing quality. The gentleman who spoke before about how they're fooling actually like Rolex watch repair service centers, right? And so, you know, again, there are some that are not good, right? So you can get, you know, $50 ones that you're not fooling anybody with. The average person, for sure, I can guarantee you slap a fake Rolex on your wrist, like most people are not going to know the difference, right? You kind of have to know what to look for. And it's not rocket science at all. Like if you are familiar with Rolex watches and you've owned one, then you could probably pick up a fake one and say, hey, something just doesn't feel right here. But there are ones that you can't do that, right?
Something happened that Rolex swore would never happen. Something that shatters everything the brand spent a century building. Rolex has reduced prices on several of its key models. These aren't promotional discounts or seasonal sales. They are permanent cuts. For a
Yeah. And why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
company that built its brand on exclusivity and stability, this move signals a major shift. These changes follow a flood of viral content.
Now, what do people always say? They've been saying it for years on my channel. Oh, you know, a Rolex is an investment. They appreciate every year. Then I saw the other day some guy was talking about the Hulk, and he's lost like 10 grand on it. So,
exposing how luxury watches, including Rolex, share manufacturing roots with far cheaper models. The videos are backed by footage from Chinese factories, internal documents, and whistleblower testimony, showing
yeah, I'd like to see all that stuff, but just want to be clear, this video is not evidence of anything. But
how components and assembly processes overlap between high-end and entry-level brands. Consumers have seen watches made in the same facilities as Rolex, using the same tools and techniques, sold at a fraction of the price. That kind of exposure destroys perceived value. Once buyers...
Keyword there, perceived value. That's what a lot of these brands like survive off of, is perception.
Buyers see that the product is not fundamentally different in material or craftsmanship, price becomes harder to justify. Collectors have started questioning the resale value. Resellers are reporting slower
Yeah, now they have, finally, after all these years.
turnover. Demand at the inflated gray market prices is cooling. Inventory is backing up. Rolex's pricing correction is a response to this shift in perception. The company cannot afford to let resale value collapse entirely. Lowering prices at the source is one way to re-anchor value before the secondary market does it for them. It's a defensive move to protect the brand's long-term image in a market that is now far more informed and less forgiving. If Rolex keeps...
Hopefully, you know, I don't know, I shouldn't say hopefully, like, I don't want to see a company like, you know, Rolex fail, of course, but ultimately, at the end of the day, if you like something and it's what you want, you should buy it, right? If you can afford it, it's not my place to tell you what you spend your money on, but I don't, it's just these people, they get these watches and they think that the quality's like, oh my God, look at what you're wearing compared to what I got. And it's just fucking nonsense. King just said, I hate it when luxury watch people use their watch as a way to piss on affordable watches. I get a Rolex Oyster Perpetual. I got a Rolex Oyster Perpetual as a gift when I graduated college, and I love it. Yeah, man, that's awesome. Like, that's a beautiful gift, right? But yeah, I mean, most people who have Rolex watches will tell you that when comparing them to affordable watches, they're nice, they're a little nicer, but they don't make the affordable watch a piece of shit.
Price is high, while consumers now see the product as mass manufactured, the brand risks being associated with overpricing rather than prestige. That threatens future demand. Reducing prices allows them to maintain some narrative control. For years, luxury brands have relied on the fact that consumers never saw how the product was made. Marketing created distance, packaging created mystique, Swiss-made created comfort.
You know what starts the ball rolling on this is the more and more watches, the flood of the influx of affordable watches like Invicta, like Aragon, like Pagani Design. I mean, I can continue on down the list, like the amazing quality you get. And when somebody with the ability to reason, a reasonable person, right, picks up these luxury brands and picks up this, affordable watch, they're like, all right, well, if they're being honest, they're like, okay, I don't see much of a difference here. What did I actually pay for, right?
But the internet closed that distance in an instant. Now anyone can see what used to be hidden.
Ooh, I do like that Rolex, the ruby bezel.
Behind trade secrecy and brand mythology. The exposure of shared supply chains, overlapping production lines, and Chinese manufacturing involvement has destabilized the credibility
And now a pissed off China.
of the entire sector. Brands that built their reputations on Swiss identity, on hand-assembled movements and artisanal detail are now implicated in practices that mirror mass production. When consumers see the same hands, machines, and factories producing both a $200 knockoff and a $15,000 timepiece, the illusion of exclusivity disappears. Collectors are reacting first. Many have already begun offloading pieces before resale values drop further. Watches once seen as investments are now viewed as liabilities. Resellers are watching margins shrink, gray market prices are dropping, some dealers are sitting on inventory that just months ago would have been snapped up within hours.
Good.
The shift is happening quickly, and no brand is immune. This isn't limited to Rolex. The same facilities in Shenzhen supply parts or finished watches to multiple luxury labels, brands that continue to market themselves as pure Swiss operations. Those companies are now in silent mode, delaying launches, scaling back marketing, and trying to distance themselves from the public conversation. But silence doesn't create trust. And with factory footage, supplier documents, and first-hand testimony spreading daily, the damage is already done. The market will not go back to the way it was. That era is over. What comes next is something entirely different. Brands that adapt, that stop hiding behind empty phrases and start being transparent about their process, may survive. Some
Heck, you might get a Rolex watch for $600 soon.
may even thrive by leaning into quality over illusion. But the ones that continue to depend on secrecy and symbolism, they're on borrowed time. If you own a Rolex today, it still carries weight. The name still sparks recognition, but this could be the last generation where that's true. Because once a luxury
King just said, no worries, the Trump tariffs will bring prices right back up. Yeah, no doubt, right?
brand is revealed to be mass-produced, the meaning behind the brand doesn't fade. It vanishes. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting,
I was going to say something, but I won't.
hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment.
So,
I
pretty
genuinely
good video. Interesting. Again, I didn't see any real evidence there other than the gentleman who's part of the, I don't know who that is, but explaining kind of the whistleblower, I guess, as to what he saw. And like anything else, remember, you know, even for you folks watching this who like my content, who've been listening to me for years, you know, always watch other videos and take in more information. Take as much information as you can before, you know, making, I guess, a final decision. You know, I believe this, but I'm not going to be 100% on this. You know, I don't know how much of a Rolex watch is made in China, if any. But I do believe that they probably are. This doesn't seem too far-fetched to me. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you like something, buy it, enjoy it. That's really all that matters. But that's it, folks. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Some of the usual suspects in here. We got a couple new folks in here today. Not that many. I usually get more people in here if it's later in the day or on a weekend. But, you know, when you guys catch us on the rerun, drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know your thoughts about that. Subscribe to the channel. As always, have a fantastic day, folks. And take care now.